Welcome to the A-Dub Club, a podcast about sci-fi, fantasy, technology, pop culture, the internet, and general nerdery. There are three things that are important to know. One, we occasionally use swear words, but try to stay in the range of PG-13, or at least the kind of R that cool parents are fine with. Two, we may talk spoilers, though in this particular episode we discuss social media networks, so not really any spoilers, except for real life, I guess. And three, finally, there is a Starbucks in the CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, and baristas are not allowed to write names on the cups because, well, spies. With that out of the way, welcome to the clubhouse. We have snacks. Welcome to the A-Dub Club. My name is Andrew Whipple.
And I'm Alex Wade.
And this happens every single time that I don't know what to say right after that. This is the third time in a row that I just roll into it, and then I got nothing. But that's okay.
It is episode 3, and
true statement.
We are rocking, rolling, and ripping it up.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully you enjoyed the fact that we broke the format last time and decided to just go for an hour and a half of talking about Star Wars.
For some reason.
Extenuating circumstances. We're a Star Wars show as much as we are anything else, I guess.
Hey, it was a good episode. No self-deprecating here. We were awesome.
That's true. I thought we had good things to say.
My mom did too.
Hey, that's
Actually,
cute.
she doesn't listen to it yet. Don't tell her.
But unlike last week, we're getting back into the real swing of things, trying to do, a 20 to 40 minute episode that focuses on an actual question that isn't some bullshit that just lets us talk about The Last Jedi for a while.
What is that question?
This week's question, inspired a little bit by recent events, but not 100% a rip from the headlines type thing, is thinking about the internet and online communities and how much power we put into the hands of online platforms. We're wondering, what are the responsibilities that platforms have with regards to policing bad actors on their platform? Beep, 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 beep. It's Whipple from the future floating in to give some context that we do give at the end of this episode, but it's not a bad thing to reiterate, or I guess iterate, at the front. We're two white dudes the same age, grew up in the same city, went to the same school, and we talk about this from our perspective because, well, that's what we can provide. We mostly focus on high-profile bad actors on social media, like Logan Paul for YouTube or Donald Trump for Twitter, but obviously there's a whole world of shitty behavior and harassment that can be and has been discussed elsewhere. We talk about what we talk about because, well, that's what we talked about. We do this sort of live and then edit it all together. But if you want more from the conversation, or you want different perspectives, that's really, really awesome. I super suggest going out and finding those. Off the top of my head, I would recommend Sarah Zhang at The Verge, Julia Alexander at Polygon, Leah Finnegan at The Outline, and Zoe Quinn. Also, as will be mentioned later, if you have a different perspective and you want to share it, please feel free to get in touch at the AW Club, TheAWClub at gmail.com, or Twitter at the AW Club, though probably email was better for actual thoughts. And if you just plain aren't interested in hearing our thoughts on any of this, that's totally your call. You get to choose what media you consume, and we respect that. This is TBH, our general view of the discussions that we have on this show. We can only provide our perspective, and our perspective will always be limited. And if you feel differently or aren't interested, you have the freedom to act on that. But it felt a little more important to spell that out explicitly when we talk about this topic than it does when we talk about like time travel or Star Wars or stuff like that. Anyway, back to the past. Sorry for interrupting. Enjoy the episode.
Yeah, and this that recent event, by the way, those of you who have been living in a shell, it is Logan Paul taking a picture with a dead body in a Japanese forest and joking about so much more than that, so much more.
Yeah.
So I guess let's talk about I mean, the obvious answer is like, well, I mean, it's a what are the responsibilities? So yes, they do have responsibilities, in my opinion. But I think we should start on the other end of the spectrum of places that ignore responsibility in its utter entirety of 4chan, for example.
Yeah.
So 4chan is a website. It's a blogging site that has, I mean, funnily enough, I've never actually been to 4chan before.
I can't say I ever have either.
Yeah, It just never seemed like a great place to be. Yeah. But it has basically completely unmoderated. I think it's completely unmoderated forums and all of the users are anonymous. But this has come to the uprising. Like this, for example, is a big launching off point of like the current like alt-right movement. There's something called R-Poll, which is please R-Poll, don't kill me for describing you. A place that is literally full of Nazis.
Come on, you.
Okay, that's Whipple speaking, not Wade.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
They're scary people.
No, they actually
are literally Nazis.
It is quite terrifying. Actually, don't, please. But that's okay, because you're probably... Because we said too much SJW bullshit about liking Ray in the last episode, so they're not listening anyway.
Yeah. But they're literally the alt-right, literally Nazis, and they go out and do horrible, awful things, and they're like a big like hacker group of people who are nihilistic. They're everything, right? It's a place. It's the wild west of the internet. Is 4chan, which, in my opinion, like it's an awful, disgusting place. But at the same time, it's not something that like I hold 4chan's like leader accountable per se, in a sense. Maybe that's not the right word. They are accountable, but not in the same way how YouTube, for example, has let a lot of different horrible, awful things happen on its platform.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, a couple different thoughts on the 4chan train. One, I'd be curious about this. I have no idea. I would be curious if there is any actual sort of moderation. At the very least, my guess is there's probably community moderation in terms of like, what are the norms and what are the accepted behaviors. Now, the downside, of course, being that community I'm guessing I'm thinking about it in regards to like particular subreddits that are known for their toxicity of like r/the Donald, that actually do have pretty strict rules and pretty hands-on mod teams, but they're being very hands-on mod teams to enforce rules that like allow that a particular brand of toxicity to flourish. But they would cut down anyone that makes a not grossly virulently pro-Trump post. But I think on the case of Reddit, it's like there actually is strict user moderation. In the case of 4chan, I have no idea because, like you, I don't know. I ain't been there.
Yeah, but it's a standard that like has been set. Like Reddit, for example, it is known for kind of similar to 4chan in the sense of like it is a free place where people come to like post all their different ideas and collaborate and like give your opinion about anything. And that's like a point, that's like a tenet of the website. So a lack of moderation in that sense is also interesting because like Reddit is like maybe it's not a good version of 4chan, but it's because Reddit has its own issues of like sometimes they do need more moderation. Like the Donald has specifically been it's been a very, very toxic place that has probably broken a lot of the statutes and terms of services of Reddit, yet they like still exist because of kind of the conceit behind Reddit of like this should be where anyone can come, kind of to an extent, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a whole crew of these sort of Web 1.0 and Web 2.0 platforms that all founded by people with a similar image of what free speech entails. And in particular, I'm thinking about like 4chan, Reddit, Twitter, all seem to have this same sort of perspective on like on free speech being sort of free for anything that is not illegal.
I think Reddit and Twitter specifically, like they do ban people for like the N-word or any other racial slur, whereas 4chan is like encouraged or something, right?
Yeah.
So there is. I understand what you're saying. If like there's a sense of like you can say anything, and like it's hard to determine that line in like these places that really try to broadcast out free speech, yet not like hate speech or whatever it is that they're gonna ban you for. So there kind of gets to be that question of like, so like Reddit, for example, is considered a super liberal space, and there was literally a controversy where the president of Reddit went in and was editing people's threads in the Donald, and that was like, oh shit, like huge deal. Why would he ever do this? Literally censoring these people.
I mean, I think, yeah, I agree that a lot of this founder class responsible for a lot of these mid 2000s platforms definitely comes from a mix of liberal and libertarian political background, I think. And yeah, you have that of, I don't remember if it was Alexis Ohanian or one of the other Reddit folks that went through that because they were pissed off at I think it wasn't that they like got in an argument with someone and they like selectively edited the comments to, I don't remember.
Yeah, it was a weird. I don't remember specifically what it was, but it was a thing.
Yeah.
And it was, and like me as a user of Reddit and like as a believer in this sense of free speech up to a point, right?
Yeah.
Well, not free speech isn't the right word I think to be using. Lack of censorship.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that was sort of that's a very good way to more succinctly phrase my point about, I think the word free speech is bandied about by a lot of these platform owners that are of a similar class, and what they mean when they say free speech is the freedom for anyone to say anything.
Literally anything.
Not the freedom to build a platform in a community where anyone feels comfortable saying anything. It is, you quite literally have the platform to do whatever, and hands off, no censorship.
Yeah.
Rock and roll, y'all.
I mean, that's something that's always a pet peeve, is like, oh, I have the freedom of speech to say whatever I want. You can't censor me. And it's like, oh, well, there's this thing called private entities, and the free speech only applies to speaking out against the government.
And also the thing of, a lot of times when people are claiming free speech, what they're trying to shut down is someone else's free speech to say, hey, fuck you, you did something that I hate.
Yeah. And the other big one, what's like a platform's responsibility for a big name, or for example, someone like the President of the United States, who is notorious for going to Twitter and saying awful things.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't actually like read all of President Trump's tweets, surprise, surprise. But I'm sure there's stuff in there that could conceivably be said to like violate the terms of service.
Definitely.
And it's hard to like, should Twitter like take down that account if he were to say something outrageous? Personally, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because like, he is a separate citizen, and like it's a different form of a person that like, you're not going to be able to censor him in any way, because guess what? He's just going to do it somewhere else. So,
which I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's something that I am intrigued by, because that actually was an argument that Twitter put out a press release relatively recently about, like, hey, clarifying how we deal with world leaders is what they said. What they actually meant was, like, obviously the only world leader anyone gives a shit about being shitty on Twitter.
Yep.
But that was one particular thing that they talked about, was that, like, we don't want to delete old tweets or ban someone from the platform because we don't want to shut down that conversation, and we also we don't want it to go somewhere else. Which my response to that kind of is, why not? If they can, if someone's gonna, if the president's gonna be shitty on someone else's platform, my personal view, if I was the head of Twitter, would be like, cool, yeah, go do that somewhere else then. I don't want you to do it here on the thing that I built. Now, that being said, that's my personal perspective, and clearly the perspective of Twitter is not that. They don't want, for whatever various reasons going on internally, they either feel a responsibility to themselves, to their mission, or to their shareholders to keep him on the platform and have that conversation happening there. But I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that it I don't think that just because it could happen somewhere else, it shouldn't. I think that would be a valid thing for a platform owner, a decision for a platform owner to make.
I think first off, Twitter definitely 100% reason is money for not kicking him off. B, I think there's a valid argument to be made about how this conceit of free speech, of like having him still be there because he's in this like special class. It doesn't, like, if they were to kick him off, then that would, in my opinion, ruin a whole lot of credibility of Twitter, because it's such a partisan political thing to do that it would be making a statement of like let's ignore the fact that who Donald Trump is. Let's focus on the fact that he is a Republican leader of America, right?
Yeah.
So if they were to kick them off, then that would be saying this Republican leader should not be on this platform. I mean, sorry, not the Republican leader, right?
Sure.
Which I know that kind of sucks, and that like, I don't know, that still feels wrong to me. It's a tricky thing to balance.
Yeah, which I think that does get at a valid point that I think a lot of these decisions, especially in the case of Twitter, what Twitter's making is what frustrates me about Twitter is when they make proclamations and make decisions that don't seem to acknowledge the fact that they are the owners and creators of the platform, when they sort of take a, oh, not up to us, our hands are tied tone to things. And while I would personally disagree with the decision, if they phrased it like that, to say we're keeping it on because we think we don't want people to have the reaction that you have, in that case, I would feel a little bit more okay with it, because they're still making an active decision rather than either pretending or believing, because I don't know anyone at Twitter, so who knows what they think in their heart of hearts, that they are neutral arbiters of a platform that they don't themselves make.
Yeah. I think that is the other part of it, of comparing, like, so is these platforms, they think of themselves as tools versus in actuality they are entities. Which, like, Facebook is the other classic example of that, of like, oh hey, we didn't influence the past election in any way, which whether or not they actually did is up for debate, but to utterly say it did not happen and had zero effects, that's a bit much.
What do you think? So when you're thinking in your head, tools versus entities, what are some differences and distinctions that you would use to make that classification?
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting because like news entities, for example, right? So Fox News or CNN, those are obviously entities. Then you go into things like Facebook, that it's a media platform, so there is decisions being made about how content is being shown to you. And even though it is all abstracted away into some magical algorithm that seems to try and decide who you are, like, guess who wrote those algorithms? People did. People are a part of entities. So, in my opinion, Facebook is an entity. Mm-hmm. Then you get to things, in my opinion, like Craigslist, where it goes more, in my opinion, on the side of a tool than an entity. Like, no one really talks about like Craig's decisions, right? I think I read about this somewhere, that he's like super against all of the sketchy things that go on Craigslist, and he's like worked fully with like the FBI and stuff like that. So even though it could be an entity, it feels like he's trying to abstract it away to be a tool. He's trying to be transparent about it in such a way that can make it its own thing, instead of Mark Zuckerberg's like all-consuming information gathering machine.
Huh. Yeah, that's interesting bringing something like Craigslist into it. I wouldn't have necessarily brought that into the same conversation, but it is still a platform, and it does make choices on how it handles moderation and how it handles the design of its tools and how it handles its existence in the wider world of the internet and interacts with the people that use it. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's, I mean, getting on to something more of like 4chan, for example, that I feel like is an entity in the sense of what the community has built there, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not a top-down thing.
If I can read between the lines a little bit, or maybe draw out an interpretation of your own interpretation that seems to float to my head, is it seems like, you know, if Craigslist is on one end of more tool than entity, if 4chan and Facebook, however, are entities, and it seems like community is part of it. And it also seems that there's a clearer sense of the way the underlying tool that supports this community, the design and the work that goes into that tool by whatever corporation or person that puts it together has a more direct effect on that broader community versus maybe something like a tool that's has a little more freedom in how the users of that tool choose to use it and take the ball and run with it. Obviously, with the caveat being that there's no such thing as a truly neutral tool. Whatever you design will have particular things that it works well for and not well for, and will guide behavior in some way or another. But like,
which is, I mean, it's interesting. So like 4chan, I'm imagining when I say like that's an entity, I mean like the people who go to that site made it an entity.
Mm-hmm.
My limited opinion of limited knowledge of 4chan is like the creator like set it and like let it go, and it's a maybe he was there and he's chilling there and is hanging out with these people, but it is an entity that was created by everyone.
Yeah.
Versus like Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, where it's these top down, we're doing this for clicks, ads, and money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Speaking of money, how do you think that plays into all of this with regards to like the responsibilities that a platform has towards its users and towards policing its users? In this case, this is a leading question to think more about YouTube, something that is very strongly ad revenue dependent, despite being it's an open platform that is famously built on, anyone can put up videos. But at the end of the day, it is still a business that has to sustain itself on advertising revenue.
I mean, it's hard. It's a what's the difference between like YouTube and Pornhub? Like, it's the fact that you can post anything on Pornhub versus you are limited on YouTube.
Entirely a side note, but that's been an interesting way that some people have been getting around the more stringent copyright and content ID things that YouTube has, is they will post pirated films and TV shows and stuff like that on Pornhub because they don't have the same content ID system.
That's
it still
amazing.
Usually gets taken down, but I read an article about that a little while ago. Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, even beyond that, of like Logan Paul and Jake Paul, before they did this awful thing of like posing with a dead body in a suicide forest, they did other horrible things, such as a lot of pranking disguised. Not pranking disguised, the opposite way around, of harassment disguised as pranking.
Yeah.
Or there was a huge. A lot of people went to this Hollywood party, and Jake or Logan Paul may have accidentally done something and like posted where they were, and caused a lot of teenagers to come and start banging on the gates at this party and like harassing people there.
Yeah, and they've done shit at VidCon similar of like whipping their fans up into a frenzy in a way that's dangerous. And Jake, I think, filled a empty pool full of furniture and lit it on fire, which is kind of dope, but also very dumb and a bad thing to do.
Like in the middle of a suburban neighborhood.
In the middle of a suburban neighborhood, in the middle of California during the summer when everything's on fire. Anyway, it's interesting that
can't account for taste.
You can't account for taste. And I think that is an open question with regards to YouTube and how YouTube chooses to moderate its platform. Is clearly you can't account for taste of the audience, and clearly there is an audience for their kind of content. I think it's a clearer break when something goes so egregiously far that it should clearly be a terms of service violation. But when it's just like they're making shitty stuff and being shitty people, but to throngs of adoring fans, that does become a sticky question about like where should YouTube step in. It'd be one thing if YouTube was 100% truly neutral in all of this, but they're not. One, they build the algorithms that reward certain types of watch behavior, and so that makes certain types of video work better on the platform. But also, like, they explicitly, being primarily an ad sales business, they have an arm of their business where they work to nurture and do premium ad sales, and they do the YouTube Red original series, and they do a lot of valid and I think clamored for talent development that's clamored for by like the good YouTubers. They want to have YouTube have that heavy hand in like helping them nurture and grow their careers. But if they are involved to that level with the good ones, how much should they be involved with the bad ones?
Yeah, it's a hard line to follow, because that YouTube was the wild west back in the day, right? Of it, you could put any and everything up there. Maybe not any and everything, but the innovation, the thing that made YouTube so cool was all of these different facets. Mm-hmm. So there's kind of this sense of like taking that away is bad in a sense, just because that's something people have grown up with, of like, you could do anything here as long as it got views.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's all sticky, and at the end of the day, I mean,
glad it's not my job.
Glad it's not my job. And that's the decision that a platform has to make on their own of, I don't know, I guess I sort of view it as, what kind of community do you want to create, and who do you want on your platform, with the knowledge being, and I think getting back to that same point that I made about Twitter earlier, of I have more respect for platforms that acknowledge the fact that they run a platform, and that in the same way that, you know, a creator of a TV show or a podcast that says, hey, I know that not everyone in the world is going to like my show, and that's okay. I'm going to make the show for the kind of people that I want to watch my show, even if I'm not necessarily in that group and don't like the thing. I have more respect for being self-aware enough and sure enough in your own personal convictions to make that call than I do for someone that's trying to strike for the middle.
Yeah.
Because I think you once you hit a certain scale, it's incredibly difficult to have the kind of moderation and definition of values that you get to do if you're a smaller community. A small forum gets to make rules that it can abide by more strictly. Because it's a small group of people. Though that being said, I don't know, maybe that's a false narrative that Twitter could still be a big company, successful company, and be more strict, and maybe people are more alike than we think they are in terms of what kinds of content and behavior they find acceptable, and Twitter should feel okay kicking off the Nazis and the alt-right, and they'll still be a big enough company. Maybe not. I don't know. I think as given by the fact that I'm 100% okay being like, yeah, fucking kick Donald Trump off Twitter right now. I almost want to quit Twitter because they aren't doing it. And you are being like, nah, that makes me feel icky. Clearly there are more differences than maybe I and my particular filter bubble on Twitter see, but
I mean, to be frank, it's solely because I bet on a weekly how many tweets will Trump make in a week.
Well, there you go then.
I made a couple $100 off it so far, and it's been exciting stuff. Yeah. It's like, during the inception of the internet, it was a different world. It was a kind of place that really, it didn't, have these it didn't have these responsibilities or these not necessarily limitations, but things that it had to do, right? We didn't hold Facebook responsible when it first came out,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there definitely is, to our credit, I guess I would say, our view of some of these platforms has matured. That if you had asked me about Facebook back in high school when I signed up for it, I wouldn't have thought of it as anything other than a neutral website where I write on people's walls and poke them. But now, we're aware that there's interplay with how Facebook designs its algorithms and how Facebook interplays with publishers and how blah, 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 and how it serves ads to people and does data collection. And I guess maybe, that's in terms of what is the platform's responsibility. I think a platform's responsibility is to come up with the culture that it wants to create and wants to have, and then take steps to make that culture the culture that is there and the culture that's supported. But I don't know. I think we also sort of have a responsibility to be thinking about the platforms that we're using and be thinking about if there's a way that either we can create a better culture or we can push the platform to take steps to make a better culture if we're unhappy with it.
Absolutely.
Okay. To wrap it up, lightning round. Should Twitter, what should Twitter do about Donald Trump?
They should tell him off.
I say kick him off. What should YouTube do about Logan Paul?
Kick him off.
Interestingly, I'm a little bit more mellow on this one. Weird how I think about, I guess, commerce versus politics. But give him a content strike. But don't kick him off just yet.
Should Facebook prevent foreign actors from interfering with our election through their platform?
Well, no. I'm going to say no.
I'm going to say fuck Russia.
Fair. Yeah, I concur with that one. Anyway, yeah, content moderation's hard. Building a platform's hard. Just admit that you have a platform and you control it and you are an active participant in this whole thing and just do the work of being a platform owner. Anyway, sorry, I will just keep ranting about that forever. This was an interesting episode. We'll see how it sounds in the edit. We'll see if people like it. I think this could be, I don't know, whatever. But
man,
hey,
you are a great editor, so you figure that stuff out.
That's true.
Seriously, by the way, I really enjoyed your edit of the last one.
Oh, thank you. Very much appreciated. If you thought this was a wishy-washy question that we didn't get a good answer for, there's an easy way to remedy that. That's you send us the questions and then we'll answer your questions if you got anything good. Or if you think that we spouted some bullshit. And also, obviously, everything we said comes from the perspective of two white dudes who are in their 20s, because that's who we are. That's not necessarily to say our perspective is wrong, but that's to say our perspective is our perspective, not anyone else's. So there's a lot of...
I'm white, so I'm right about everything.
That's true. There's a lot of things that are left out. So if you feel differently, that is entirely valid. Do your own thing. And also feel free to let us know. You can both give us questions and let us know how you thought about this by emailing us at theawclub, that's THEAWCLUB @gmail.com, or on Twitter at theawclub, same spelling, THEAWCLUB. We're in a bajillion different places, sometimes spelled ADUB, ADUB, sometimes AW. The internet sucks. See, the internet, that's a platform thing that Twitter needs to do, is let us have the AW Club and not some random guy that hasn't tweeted since 2011.
And with that, 8 Up Club out.
8 Up Club out.